to educate, motivate, and build one another through shared knowledge and success. This is Young and Successful, and these are your hosts, Jay Chukwi, Kenny Awashika, and PJ Luminan.
Welcome back to the Young and Successful podcast. Our goal is to educate, motivate, and build one another through shared knowledge and success. Our guest today is Dr. Christopher SHAH. Dr. Chris graduated high school at the age of 17, all right? Finished college at the age of 20 and graduated med school by the age of 24. From there, he moved on to complete his residency at the age of 28. Impressive stuff. And worked in private practice for 2 years, becoming a partner at the age of 30. He currently practices as an ophthalmologist. Dr. Chris, thank you for taking the time to hang out with us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Not a problem, man. When we met you on public, it's crazy that we met actually on investing app. How crazy is that? And started talking to you and I saw your story. I thought it was quite inspirational. So, of course, Kenny and I had to have you on the podcast to just share your experiences and talk to people, because I think you are, really an example of what people talk about when you prepare and invest, right? I would say you're a result of that because of how your parents kind of got you through this and how you've carried on with that as well. So tell us about your journey and, of course, why the medical field for you.
All right. So the journey actually starts with my parents. So my mom came when she was 16 from South Korea as an immigrant. My dad came at 18 as an immigrant as well. And they actually met at the University of Wisconsin on chemical engineering, trying to share homework answers. So both my parents are engineers. They ended up settling in the automotive sector in GM. And so that's where I was born and raised. Kind of in first grade, I think, is when I decided I wanted to be a doctor, and two Asian immigrant parents, they said, we're on board with that. And so they definitely nurtured and fostered that. But I've always been someone where I set my mind to it and I just kind of keep going with it. And so I did math and science. I went to a really good public high school where I had a great AP teachers that had been teaching for many years. And so when I finished high school, I actually had about a whole year's worth of engineering credits from kind of AP Calculus 1 and 2, physics, biology, statistics. All my prereq courses for intro to engineering were pretty much done. And so when I started up college, I decided to kind of hedge a little bit. So I did biomedical engineering for my bachelor's, and then I did pre-med as well. And so I just kind of did fall, winter, spring, took the summer semester off, then fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, finished, and then went straight to med school. But yeah, med school was hard. I didn't have any doctors in the family other than a cousin that was a few years older. So I didn't really know what I was getting myself into as a physician. So maybe there were things I might have wished to have learned or knew a little bit more about, maybe some of the personal side or business of medicine before going into it. I don't think it would have really deterred me, but then ended up at residency at the University of Virginia and did 4 years there. It was tough, but thankfully survived. Finally got some control over my life in private practice in North Carolina, and just been kind of working real hard for the last 5 years, and only recently started to get onto that public, where I started to make a lot of new friends and started networking. Honestly, with the pandemic in the last year and a half, it's been kind of just took a week off in 2020, just was grinding it out at work. It's kind of alienating. You don't get to see new people or friends or anything like that. Everything you always feel like is just a choice between, like, is this taking unnecessary risk? And so when kind of June of 2021, when I discovered Public, it was great. It was a happy accident. I got to make a bunch of new friends on there, networking with a lot of people. Got to come on here, was on a podcast earlier last month. And so it's just been amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been intense from the get-go to this moment. Do you take a break at any point? Like, have you taken a vacation at any point? Like, how is that for you?
So I'm a homebody. And so like all my vacations that we would have in residency or med school, it would just be to hang out with my parents. I have a little sister, she's 6 years younger, and my parents that I'm close with. And so we'd go on family vacations. We'd spend a lot of time. I didn't get married until last year. And so, I mean, for me, a lot of my stuff has just been with family. We're very close knit. We take care of each other. I think you touched on it. My parents really helped me out by paying for my college and med school. For me, when I was in college, since I did 3 years, they offered to pay my first year of med school as well. But then they were doing well enough financially through work that they're like, well, we can do the last 3 years, but you just have to pay for your sister's graduate school if she chooses to do it. And so actually, when I got into private practice, that first year was my sister's first year doing her master's at Northwestern in engineering. And so I ended up being able to help pay for her master's. So both her and I graduated both college and graduate school debt free and started off on just solid financial footing.
You just mentioned something that is super critical right there. Sense of community. It's something that we've heard a lot from this podcast. Is that when you surround yourself with a very strong, tight knit of people, in your case, it's your family, it gives you a very strong foundation to now then build upon. That's really great. Hope somebody out there learns from that. The one question I would like to ask is, you know, anyone listening to this would be like, man, how do you get that mindset to just keep at it? Is it a mindset of delayed gratification, or is it just a mindset that was ingrown in you through your parents? Or because sometimes it's personality, sometimes you kind of read a book and then that gets you going. Sometimes it's just good parenting that gives you that culture or that mindset and keeps you going. Where did you get yours from?
So I would say it's both probably part genetic and part environmental factors. So both my parents are very hardworking. They sacrificed quite a bit to put me in the situation and to put my sister in the situation that we both were. But at the same time, you have to have a certain level of grit, determination. For me, being the firstborn in the US, seeing how much my parents sacrificed to give me the opportunities made it feel like if I did not take advantage of those opportunities afforded, it was kind of disrespecting my parents and not honoring the sacrifices they made. And so that was something that probably was internalized at a very young age. I mean, my mom always joked that even as like a first grader, I was very responsible and had kind of like an old soul. And so I was always probably a little bit more as the oldest son in an Asian family, probably a little bit more sense of responsibility and like trying to get things done, be productive, try to take care of my sister and my family in the future. And so that was always probably playing a little bit. But when I read a book, Grit by Angela Duckworth, honestly, that book really resonated with kind of the way I was raised. I was never the smartest, I was never the best, but I had grit and determination. I'd grind it out and I could over prepare and compensate for maybe not being the smartest or the brightest or the most naturally gifted.
That kind of reminds me of that saying, hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard, right? So that is, I definitely can relate with that, and it makes a lot of sense there. Now, going back a little bit here, you mentioned about things that you wish you knew as you went through medical school. What would you say are some of those things that you wish you knew ahead of time?
So when I did med school, I thought I was going to do academics. When I did residency, I'd actually applied to a fellowship, so a 2-year fellowship in oculoplastic surgery. I interviewed at half the programs in the country and then ended up going unmatched, which was really upsetting at the time.
Wow.
But I ended up going ahead and discovering that I loved cataract surgery the following year, and then decided to go into private practice, and it was great. But one of the things I learned in private practice was just the business aspect of medicine. Sometimes in academic medicine, we lose out with the fact that like you have to make money to keep yourself viable. You cannot take care of patients if you cannot afford to pay your own bills. And so the business side of medicine was one thing that was really frustrating. Not to say that doctors are taking advantage of patients and trying to make money off of patients, but more realistically, just getting paid what you're owed from an insurance company and dealing with the hoops and logistics that the insurance companies will set up for you was really kind of frustrating. And I don't think I was necessarily prepared for that. I'm someone that doesn't like inefficiencies. My dad does consulting for operational efficiency. And so my mindset for this was not necessarily prepared for the fact that, like for cataract surgery, I think it's Aetna recently came out with prior authorizations for cataract surgery, not necessarily because they're planning on denying it, but I think it's more of a delay or stall tactic because the more money that they keep in the banks earning interest and in other investments, the more money they make. And I don't think they're really protecting anyone by doing the prior authorizations. They're just creating more work for me. And so that was kind of frustrating because in 2020, we had our reimbursement, I think, cut around 10% for cataract surgery. And so I can do the same amount of work and get paid 10% less, but my bills to deliver that care goes up. So paying my staff their kind of wages going up. The cost of technology to deliver like EHR and staying compliant goes up. The implants that I put in the eye, cost goes up. So if the pie gets smaller and my allocation of money to pay my cost to deliver that care goes up, well, that money has to come from somewhere. And generally it comes from either the doctor seeing more patients or the doctor making less money, which makes the doctor unhappy. I mean, they didn't go through all of this time and effort to be a doctor and also worry about the hassle of the business side of medicine to keep just arbitrarily having their income cut by Medicare just deciding arbitrarily, or not arbitrarily, but the government can say, we're going to crack down on ophthalmology this year. We're going to cut reimbursement. There's not a lot we can do about it. We try to lobby and things like that. But American Academy of Ophthalmology's lobbying group is probably not as effective as maybe some of these biotech companies or healthcare insurance industries. And so it just kind of feels like a little frustrating. And so that's the business side of thing that I was completely unaware of. So I love taking care of my patients. I would love to practice medicine for as long as possible. But part of the reason why I'm pretty aggressive with saving and investing is so I can have that freedom of financial freedom to walk away from medicine the minute I feel that the benefits of practicing don't necessarily outweigh the hassle of health insurance and the government regulations.
I'm surrounded by a lot of medical people. I have cousins, brothers. Actually, my younger brother is an ophthalmologist as well. And is planning on selling his practice. And I think this probably has a lot to do with it.
Is he going to private equity?
It's funny. Is that what all you guys are thinking about these days?
It's not so much. So Goldman Sachs bought out my eye doctor, which is optometry. Okay. And so that's one of the more frustrating things is, so what ends up happening is a lot of these smaller business that are just one or two doctors to keep compliant gets so expensive. So you have these older doctors that have no exit plan, but you have these private equity groups that see it as a churn and burn, make their return, flip it. And so they're just buying it up, paying these doctors handsomely. But the minute the newer doctors come in 5 years later, they renegotiate contracts and it's going to be bad. And so it's really bad news for healthcare as a whole. And that's why our group is about 20 doctors and we have no interest of ever selling to private equity. We would rather be the private equity acquiring other practices.
Oh yeah, it's just him. It doesn't have a partner. Yes, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of paperwork, and a lot of regulations to meet, and it just seems to be adding up. Especially with this electronic record stuff that you guys have to meet up with now.
Yeah.
That's another additional business operational cost that is not covered and it's not added to the patients at the current
reimbursement. Correct.
Yeah, reimbursement. Yeah. So it's a pretty difficult field. So back to the interview questions though. When you look at stuff like this, right, I would consider it an industry challenge. And you probably face a lot more challenge than this. So just going through this right now, I'm sure it's something that you just see as maybe a mountain or kind of like a roadblock. And I'm sure you find your way around it, right?
So like the prior authorizations and all that stuff. Yeah, so like we end up having to see more patients. We hire people that are going to hopefully be able to execute and do the things that as a physician that I don't want to do. And hope that by seeing more patients that we can cover those costs, trying to make things as efficient as possible. And so one of the reasons why we get dings is just because of our operational efficiency. We're able to see a lot of patients. So my average template is anywhere from 35 to 40 patients a day. And so that's what like my day looks like. I'm pretty busy, but I spend maybe anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes actually interacting with the patient, while the patient might be there for anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, 2 hours, depending on the level of testing and things they have to do. But I'm only doing the stuff that comes to medical decision making and like the documentation. I have scribes for that, for the billing. We have a billing department. We have front desk. We have staff that works up the patients and does all the imaging and things like that. And so that's our ways kind of around it. But you keep squeezing it, and there's only so much operational efficiency that you can find. And so we're kind of reaching a breaking point that within the next 5 years or 10 years, we're going to see the repercussions of all these things, when you end up finding a lot of doctors potentially retiring early, because FIRE is actually a big popular thing within, I think, the millennial physicians.
Yeah, FIRE, right? That's an
Yeah,
interesting conversation. We could talk about that all
absolutely.
day.
It's the retire early community, right? I heard about those guys. Absolutely. Now that's actually interesting. Let's tap more into that because you said one of your strategies right now is saving, right? And this aggressive saving which you're doing to essentially get to this point where if you choose to, of course, retire early. But not only are you doing that, you also are taking a step further by also providing financial education for others who may not know it. As a matter of fact, I learned about some real good stuff on your YouTube recently. What was it called again?
The
This
donor
goes
advice fund.
Donor Advice Fund.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I was watching your YouTube channel, which, by the way, we're going to link Chris's YouTube channel down here or down over there.
Check it out.
So
Lots of
you
good
can check it
stuff.
out. Definitely check it out and subscribe.
Appreciate that.
But what made you want to do that, right? Not only to just do this for yourself, right? Because you're pretty good at learning this stuff, and you're making good headway with your investments and things like that. But what made you decide that I want to teach others about this as well?
So I actually wanted to do academic medicine. I love teaching. And
Right.
so I liked explaining things simply to make it understandable, whether it's to patients, whether it's to just future med students, residents, whatever. So like I do family medicine teaching for the family medicine residents at our local hospital. But I was kind of missing out on that. One of my staff members, his name's Javier, he and I are doing like shoe resale together, but I kept like pushing him, like, you should start a side hustle. You should start to generate passive income in addition to what you get from us here. And so I kept talking like, oh, you should do YouTube. I started watching Graham Stephan. I think Mark Tilbury is, I think, a UK guy that's a little bit older. I was watching their stuff going on their deep dive, and I realized they were making quite a bit of money. And I saw YouTube as the future of delivery of TV. So like I like Hulu, I like Netflix. I got rid of Comcast and I try to stay away from TV service providers. And so for me, I think Google is the future. Okay. People creating their YouTube channels is going to be the new networks, and they're going to create their own brand or lifestyle or whatever that we as consumers are going to want to watch, and they're making good money from it. And so I was like, I think I could do this. And so for YouTube, I didn't want to do it on medicine yet. I wanted to do it more on personal finance. That's something I love. I originally was going to go ahead and do it to teach towards med students, residents, fellows, recently graduated attending physicians, because in medicine, we are one track minded. So we go straight into med school, residency. The majority of them, unless they took time off or happened to venture into finance for whatever reason, we never learned any of this stuff. And so if it wasn't for my dad having an MBA and encouraging me to start a Roth IRA when I first started residency and making salaried money, I probably never would have learned about finance. But so for me, I started reading a book called The White Coat Investor by Peter Dow. And it was just definitely solidified my track of like, I want to learn this, do this for my own. I didn't have a lot of money in residency. You can look up all of our salaries for residents online. But I mean, I made probably $55,000 to $60,000 during those 4 years, working anywhere from 60 to 80 hours.
Right.
So like that money, I was able to carve out $500 a month, save it, and invest it in my Roth IRA and max that out year over year. But like that's how I got my investing start. And so for me, this was a great way to try to give that back with my time to teach personal finance to potentially an audience of medical professionals. But around that time, I had gotten on public, and I thought it might be a good way to kind of build up the YouTube channel. And then I accidentally went and trended on public by talking about like, oh, hey, why the heck didn't we learn about financial literacy in K through 12? Like, why was this hidden? Why is this the best kept secret? Like, and so that kind of took off, and that kind of opened my eyes that a lot of people resonated with that. And that financial literacy, probably it's best just to teach it to everyone. If I happen to hit all the medical students, professionals, great. But if I hit everyone else, perfect. And so that's kind of what set me off on the current track. And so in 3 months, I've built the YouTube channel to kind of over 500 subscribers. My stretch goal was 1,000 by the end of the year. And so honestly, I didn't think I was going to hit it, but I kind of wanted to. And the fact that I'm over halfway there is kind of nifty. And so we'll see where it goes. But I've been learning everything from social media, from Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, a blog, Amazon Associates. It's just been a wild ride trying to learn all these ways of kind of social media, digital advertisement, and trying to create like revenue through ads and clicking and selling things, but hopefully that aren't going to be costing people extra money. So my main thing is trying to deliver educational resources that are free to them. If I'm able to make money through ad revenue through YouTube, great. If people are going to buy anything anyways through Amazon links, then I get like a 1% kickback from that. Perfect. I'm not really trying to ask money from my audience, just that if they're going to go about their business, they want to do it through whatever my stuff is, or to support it by liking and subscribing, great. And if not, so be it.
Hey, I love it, man. You should see Chris's comments. You should check out his channel on public and on YouTube. It's quite educative. And Chris has this wonderful style of breaking down the topic that you're like, oh, I didn't even know it was that easy. But I guess that's part of what you get from going to grad school and med school and all that
short
stuff.
videos for sure.
Yes, so awesome. So actually, I want to change the topic real quick because I am surrounded, like I said earlier, by a lot of folks in the medical field. I actually started as a pre-med student. I dropped out. I was like, this is too crazy. I can't handle all the memorization. I'm going to computer science.
Oh, so you went to computer science because that's easy.
Well, it was supposed to be easy. Then I got to grad school and I was like, this crypto thing is too difficult. I don't like programming. I'm losing my hair. So I was like, let me go to the School of Business. So I did the Master's in Information System Technology, which is like business and IT together. But back to the pre-med people. I love you guys. Those are like my closest friends in undergrad. So a lot of people are unfortunate to come out of this old, very long, expensive program without debt, right? A lot of them do have debt, right? What would you tell a medical student out there or someone that is thinking of going to med school? I know you're not going to discourage them because people love this, but that's why they do it. What would you tell them? Because a lot of them, like you said, do not focus on finances at all. And they come out of school just focusing on paying out debt because they have so much debt, they cannot almost even pay for their standard of living. What would you tell someone out there?
I would discourage some people. So the discouraging one that I do would be for the ones that are pre-med that are just doing it for potentially buying that nice car, that nice house. If you don't have the passion for medicine, don't do medicine for the money or the prestige. Do it because you love it, because you want to take care of the patients, because when you have to deal with more of the business and administrative side, or you're going through the grind of med school and residency, if you don't have that true why that you're doing it and it's just for money, like you could easily find other ways, if you're bright enough to get into med school, to make your money elsewhere. But those of you that are going to medical school, one of the first traps you're going to fall into is your financial advisor is not going to really be much use to you. They're going to tell you you can just take out as much money as you want. A lot of the students treat it like monopoly money, and that's a bad idea. That money starts accruing interest anywhere from 6 to 8% interest. My class is, I think, the last class that had full 4 years of subsidized loans for about $9,000 a year. But that $9,000 a year wasn't a lot. And honestly, I think most kids came out with anywhere from $200,000 to $250,000 worth of debt. And that money is huge. When you're in residency, $55,000, $60,000 sounds like a lot, unless you are doing your residency in New York and LA, in Atlanta, in one of these major cities where a lot of these academic programs are. Suddenly your money doesn't go very far. You're spending all your money on rent. You want to live a little bit, but then you have this debt kind of from school that you have to do loan repayment, and it can get really tight. So just being really mindful with taking the minimum amount of loans that you can is probably the safer way. The other thing I would say is that learning about investing while you're not making a lot of money is probably a good thing. If you can learn to invest $100 well and get good percentage returns, you can apply that to a 6-figure income later on and it'll be well served. You do not want to wait until you're making 6 figures to try to figure it out, because that's just going to be an expensive mistake. So get your mistakes out when you have that small money and you're not going to lose a lot of money. If you lose 50% of like $100, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But you lose 50% of like 5 figures, you're not going to be happy about that. Third and final thing would be, when you finally make it to attending salary, live like a resident for at least a couple of years. Live within your means. Don't do lifestyle creep. Like if I made $60,000 and my baseline salary when I signed was $200,000, I can give myself a pay bump to $80,000 or like even $100,000, and that's a huge increase from where I was. I don't need to kind of increase my lifestyle to that full 200,000, just pocket the rest and start saving it, putting in retirement savings account, building for the future. Give yourself financial freedom, pay off your debt. Try to take that first couple of years to aggressively pay down your debt, get yourself on solid financial footing, because I truly believe a doctor that is financially independent is a far better clinician.
This is true. I think I would imagine in that situation, probably less stress, right? Which will allow
Less
you to
stress,
perform better.
enjoy work more. You're going to be more likely to not let the small things bother you as much.
I do find out that a lot of the med school students do not invest at all until maybe even not at all.
At all. Well, and this is one of those things that no one knows because no one knows, right? Because no one talks about it either. So again, I think that's really cool. Do not take on a lot of debt. Well, first of all, do not take on medical school if you're not passionate about it. I really like that because, when you're passionate about something, it's effortless, right? You wake up every day and want to do it. Do not take on a lot of debt to go to medical school. And of course, learn to invest ahead of time before you get to that point where you're making a lot of money and live below your means.
Yep.
Incredible.
That was a big knowledge transfer right there, and that's what
Hey,
Chris does
listen.
best.
Hey, I love it, man. I love it. I've totally seen the videos, and he's just very articulate. Now, let's talk about habits, right? Because we talk about these things, and one does not just wake up one day and just boom, just roll through it. Obviously, I think that is also pretty cool. As you mentioned before, your parents also were kind of hard workers, and they definitely kind of guided you through this process where you grew up to be where you are. But there's a point where you disconnect, right? You're off on your own, and you can do anything. What would you say are some things that you have kind of kept up with as far as habits, right? Discipline and things like that to keep you on track with your goals? Because I would imagine even for everyone gets tempted at some point. Everybody wants something, right, that they're interested in that may not be a great thing financially for them at that point in time. What would you say?
I'm actually really boring, so that's one of my greatest. I love
hidden talent.
I love traveling, like with my family, but by and large, like I'm an introvert. I'm a homebody. Like I live well within my means. There's nothing really special about me other than I'm really uniquely boring.
We need to take Chris to the gun range.
Hey,
I've been fun, yeah. I chose not to buy a gun because that would have been a very expensive habit. Because no one buys just one gun. There's always multiple ones involved, and
this is very true.
I have a very addictive personality in terms of like when I do something, I go full tilt. And so like I know myself to kind of stay away from certain things like that. I've never been a car guy, so like if I bought a Tesla, it'd probably be more for my dad because I think he really secretly wants one. But like I splurged on my house. Like this is called the Industrial Lounge. The previous owner had built a full bar, and that's the backdrop for my YouTube channel. Like I have an outdoor like grill and kitchen, so like that's where I splurge my money on. But I spend most of my time here. That's what I love to do. I recently got married, and so it'd be nice to have a 2-week honeymoon in Greece like we had planned in May of 2020, but the world had other plans for us. And so like by and large, I've just been delaying gratification, but like I live my life. I enjoy the little things like spending time with my family, eating out. So like I love ethnic food. And so like in the Raleigh area, they have really great Indian food. Like at the place like across from my office, they've happened to have like really good sushi. And I lived in Tokyo for 3.5 years. And so like it's good sushi. And so that's where I spend more of my money more than I should. And I probably spend more of my money on my staff than I do probably on myself.
I think it's great spending because it sounds like, especially spending on your staff, that pays back, right?
Yeah. Oh no. They help me do so much. And so like we don't always necessarily probably pay them as much as we should, but I try to defray some of the costs by like buying lunch at least once or twice a week because that adds up. They always like to go out and eat. And so if you're making, let's say $15 an hour, like $8 every day or every work week, like every day through the work week, it adds up. And so if I can defray that cost. And like I've been trying to get them on public and investing. And so
Right.
one of my team leads, I basically every Tuesday she puts in $20 into the market. She just gives me her phone and I invest it.
There you go. Yeah, I
You'll
think
be
that's pretty cool.
surprised. You'll be
Yeah.
surprised how many employers out there that don't have that kind of empathy or does not
Yeah.
even get involved at that level.
Oh, I
Definitely.
threatened her that she's going to retire with me when I retire early.
That's good.
Hey, there you go. That's a good
She
goal
just
there.
can't leave me.
Yeah. I this is the thing. This is one thing I will say. I agree with you. Being boring is great for finances. As a matter of fact, ever since I've been staying in, since from the lockdown sort of thing, right? My habits have changed. And I'm very serious about this. My habits have changed because before I would be able to just go out and do whatever. And
Go
then actually,
racing.
exactly. I
Expensive
go
habits.
racing. I do it. I was out there racing, photography, lifting, all sorts of things, right? Now, I do go-kart racing every now and then now, but it is way cheaper than other things I was doing before, right? And
It's going
actually,
tomorrow, by the way.
I am going go-kart racing tomorrow. But it's a special occasion. It's my cousin's birthday, and I promised him I was going to take him go-karting. So take him out there, dust him on go-karting to ruin his day, and then take him back home. But and actually Kenny's actually those people that actually has been helping me right through this process and kind of giving me ideas, right? Because he's been doing this for much longer than I have. So I think one thing that I also did to kind of transfer those habits, whereas I essentially converted my spending habits into investing habits. Because when I started buying stocks and things like that, I became obsessed with it. I was
Mhm.
waiting for the next dollar so I could buy some more stuff, so I could just sit there and watch it go up. Right. So now it's like I'm in this position where it's like, well, every money I make, the first thing I think about is like I'm either trying to buy stocks or I'm trying to buy crypto. So for anyone out there, I think there is a thing behind it. Um, and I think that's also where something like Robinhood is good, right? You know, to say it's gamification of investing and things like that. Unless you're doing options, because everyone wants to do options, right? I think that it is great because if you keep adding and adding and adding, and it makes you want to invest money every time, right?
Mhm.
I think that that is great because people have probably saved more, and people have definitely invested more during this period of time, right? Than almost any other time. So I agree with you there.
Well, I mean, part of the reason that I'm also boring though is because, like you, like every dollar I make, I'm thinking about investing. Like that gives me joy. That's like my biggest hobby. It's just
Yeah.
investing. And it just gives me a sense of control that I'm working towards financial freedom. And so that brings me happiness. And then, like,
Absolutely.
I still like to spend money on things when I want to. I just try to be mindful of it. We all have to live life. Life is short. So that's one of the things like I really like Brendan Shima from Public. A lot of his
Mm.
stuff on kind of his podcast ended up being about like, this is why I invest, but nothing is guaranteed in life. You still have to find ways to kind of enjoy life in the moment.
Yeah.
And so that's something I've been working towards because for me, I've always been spending all my time thinking 4 years from now, 6 years from now, like, how am I going to get into med school? How am I going to get into residency? How will I get into fellowship? I spend so much time thinking in the future. I didn't really live in the present. And that was something that I had to learn and retrain myself in the last kind of 5 years in private practice.
Hey, lessons learned, know yourself, right? Once you know yourself, right, you gotta now build the habits around yourself that allows you to continue to grow. And one of the things that we'll talk about on this channel is that success just not doesn't just happen. It happens over time and it continues over time. But it's the habits that gets you there. And we just basically talked about those habits that we need to keep. We're not saying not to have fun. You can't YOLO everything. You can't YOLO your life away.
You shouldn't.
You just want a better future, so you gotta kind of have a strategy for it. It's not gonna all come together as planned. We've all had our ups and downs, but if you surround yourself with great people like Shay and Chris,
Hey,
check
you
out
know,
Chris's channel, check out our
we're in
channel.
there.
You will be
Definitely.
you'll be in good terms, right? Um,
And join public as well, man, because Chris is dropping gems on public daily, multiple times a day. So
daily, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
All right. So that is pretty cool. Now, Chris, before we wrap up here, there's two things I have to ask here. What is next for your YouTube channel, your career as well, right? In the medical practice. And yeah, I guess that's it. What is next for your medical practice and for your YouTube channel?
So for my career, honestly, I hit my stride. I'm probably at the peak right now for my medical career. So I end up doing about 1,000 cataract surgeries a year. There's some other people in our
Hang on,
practice.
1,000?
Mhm.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so like the average cataract surgeon probably does anywhere from 300 to 600. So I'm technically in the high volume category.
Okay.
But you know, when your partners are doing 2,000 or 2,500, you don't feel so special, which is kind of nice. It keeps you humble. And
Hey,
so
true.
like I've hit my stride there. Like I don't need to be the most busiest cataract surgeon in North Carolina. Like I'm
Right.
making more than enough money at work. So I'm happy where I'm at. I like to maybe streamline my practice so it's just more focused on I just see just strictly cataract surgery evaluations rather than routine eye exams in there. But from my practice standpoint, I've kind of built a reputation in the community. People know who I am, they trust me. And so I think I'm at a steady state where I'm happy with where I'm at work. But for me, kind of with the personal finance stuff, I'm really excited about seeing where this takes me. I have given myself kind of a 6 month timeline where I've been running it, the channel in the red, probably by a couple $1,000s. From doing like the stock market challenge. That's already $600 that I've basically budgeted to give away for 2021. And then like the stuff I bought for like the camera and the recording, all that's kind of expensive. But if I can have social impact, teaching people about financial independence, financial literacy, personal finance, that investment is more than worth it to me if I can set people on a different trajectory because their kids one day will learn from their parents. And so that's how you'll have multi-generational impact. And so that's what I'm kind of after. For the YouTube channel, I kind of talked in my donor advised fund video how my goal is to ultimately save up $1 million for it. So for me, I tried to aggressively still give within the year. So I'm already giving probably around 30, 40,000 a year. And I'm trying to go ahead and put more into the donor advised fund than I'm already giving out and trying to hit that $1 million mark over the course of my career. And so if I could monetize the YouTube channel so that it grows and kind of takes off something like Graham Stephan, that'd be awesome. But that allowed me to fund a donor advised fund a lot faster than I could do through cataract surgery alone. And so that would be my ultimate dream stretch goal with it. I'll probably fall flat on my face to some extent, but even if I break even on it, the knowledge that I'm hopefully getting to share with others, that's going to more than kind of pay itself forward. And so that's what I'm hoping to do. I also have another venture. So honestly, all the stuff I'm doing on public, learning digital media and all this is honestly just a beta test for what I want to do with patient education. So going forward, I'd like to be able to create like a YouTube channel for patient education, do like a TikTok, YouTube, and potentially like a blog where I just cover different topics like what is a cataract, what is glaucoma, and find a way of getting that out there so that I can just, instead of patients like, oh, can you repeat that to my daughter or loved one, I can just be like, here's some good links and resources. You can learn it on your own time. And it would be A, saving me time, but B, it's also better for the patient to kind of learn on their own pace, not feeling rushed. And so I think it'll be something that might, in the end, help me in my medical practice as well.
I think that's incredible. One thing that stands out to me there is just the spirit of giving. Yeah, I think that's really incredible. We're all better for it. So
Yeah.
thank you for having that spirit, honestly, because that's pretty dope. You don't run across people like that every time.
That's instilled from my mom.
Hey, there we go. Thanks to mom. Right?
Shout out to mama.
Shout out to mom. Right? Exactly.
He's been a mama's boy.
Exactly. Well, that is it for me. We're gonna give you 10 seconds to close out. But before, okay, Kennedy, do you have any other questions?
Hey, the last question, as always, right?
Hey, man, that is. I mean, there's kind of nothing else to say after that, man. That is really incredible. This has really been fun. So we'll leave it to you to close this one out, Chris. Just final words, anything you want to say to anyone out there.
All right. So thanks for listening. Honestly, I'm just a random guy that you guys are taking the time out of your day to listen to us talk. If you have questions about personal finance, check out any of my resources from the YouTube to TikTok to my blog. If you want to kind of interact with me on public, I'll talk to anyone. If you have questions about medical school, feel free. My email is ctsshah chris.llc@gmail.com. You guys can put that in the link. Be happy to talk to anyone. If it's about what medicine is like, you need to just talk, ask questions, I'm happy to talk. I miss that aspect of mentorship. And so I'd be more than happy to give that back, because there are plenty of people that poured into my life, and it's just my turn to pour back in others.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Chris SHAH, we're going to leave his Instagram, his YouTube, and a link to his blog as well. Thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with us.
Yeah.
Also we're going to be adding for his practice, right? So that folks can give him more.
Yes, absolutely. A link to the practice as well, for sure. All right. So thank you so much for hanging out with us, Chris.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Definitely. Until next time, check out.